And off go the first lot of grapes to the winery.
Yes, I have tricks in my pocket. I have things up my sleeve.
One is normal, and I get one.
See? Same day.
So I'm doing the movie of the harvest here.
I got a text from him 2 days ago. That's good. Yeah.
I retightened that one.
You did? I thought that was my muscles.
Hi, so it's Friday afternoon and we've had a big week of picking this week. I thought I'd do a little video and show you what happens to the grapes after we've finished crushing them. We've got in this tank here, what we picked today. This is our 2014 Saperavi. So it's just been crushed into the tank this afternoon. Nice yummy grape juice with all the grape skins mixed in there, ready to start fermenting. The yeast is going in today, and that's the start of the winemaking process. So then over here we've got the Shiraz that we picked yesterday. You can see already that it looks quite a lot different to the batch from today, just by being that 1 day older and having the fermentation just starting to tick along. The skins have all started to rise to the top, and you've also got a bit of a darker colour because the colour is starting to be extracted into the juice from the skins. And then just next door we've got Wednesday's batch. It's pumping over. The fermentation is well and truly happening now. You can see it all frothing up. We need to regularly, or twice a day, pump over the fermentations once they get going to keep the skins nice and moist, because they do all float to the top, so they do tend to dry out and that can make them go vinegary. But a couple of times a day, give them a bit of a pump over. And as well as keeping the skins moist, this also just keeps it mixed so that everything's happening evenly. And also allows us to cool it because heat is generated during the fermentation, but we don't want it to get too hot, otherwise it'll get away on us. So the fermentation will continue for a few days. and we keep monitoring the sugar level every day so that we know where it's up to. And once the sugar level gets down to 0, the fermentation's complete.
Basket pressing is sort of the more traditional method of pressing fermented grapes. The tank press is probably the more modern version, or the modern thought behind it. And here we use a couple of basket presses, one that's quite old and one that's more new and more frequently used, but a couple of tank presses as well. So for us to choose batches to go through a basket press, they've got to be small parcels, usually premium parcels as well. The amount of time it takes to press something by basket is a lot longer, but it's rewarding. You get a much gentler extraction and you have more control over what you're doing, but you do have to be quite patient. So this press, which is quite old, we're not exactly sure how old because it came from salvage and was installed in this winery later on, is quite slow and quite noisy, but quite gentle on the fruit. So you load all of your fermented grapes into this basket here, so you can fit a couple of tonne in that whole basket and fill it right up. And what happens, as opposed to the more modern basket press, which plunges down, this basket will all raise up. So this whole tray will move up like this by water pressure, so like a hydraulic pressure. It's quite old-fashioned the way that it runs. And you can imagine your fruit being squashed in here as the tray raises up until it comes to rest at about here. So this handle will end up at about that height and it all looks quite strange. And as it presses, you taste the juice that runs off, or the wine that runs off. Your first juice will be really quite lighter in flavour and colour, more delicate and quite aromatic. And then as it presses harder, you'll find something that's more full-bodied. There's more extraction, so there's more tannin and phenolics. And then eventually you'll reach a point where you know that you're extracting more phenolics and more bitterness than you're getting for the flavour. So that's when you choose to make your press cut. So this is the much more modern version of the old basket press. This is a stainless steel basket, which is easier to clean and more hygienic for that reason, but the press operates in a very similar way and does a very similar job. So again, it's all about a really slow and gentle extraction and having control over that point where you stop pressing. So there's a lot of opportunities to taste at the tray. So you have that first part of the pressing where juice flows more freely and it is a bit more rapid, although still somewhat slow. And if you taste at that stage, it's quite fruit forward. The palate is more gentle and supple, and it's quite aromatic. And then as you move through the pressing program, you find that richer and deeper flavours develop. You have more tannin, more body and more mouthfeel, and then at some point that will then become a more challenging palate. So with more extraction, you have more bitterness, more tannin again, and you make a decision on when to cut the wine based on the flavour versus, bitterness and tannin extraction. So there's a large spread of time over which to make that decision, and a lot of tasting that goes on in the meantime, which makes it a lovely process to go through, but again, quite time consuming, and you do have to be quite patient. So this, where the old basket press raised up against the ram, this is much more modern and convenient. This ram actually just presses down like a normal sort of plunger and squashes your cake of fruit in the bottom. So again, it has the tray at the bottom to collect juice and send it away. And all of these holes, as soon as you start pressing, juice will start running through all of them. As this ram comes down, juice will be flowing out of all of these holes. And the ram will just continue down until you've got just what we call a cake. And there's very little left at the end. For the amount and mass and volume that you started with, you end up with quite a small cake of pressed grape marc at the end, and seeds.
We're here at the Sea House in downtown Chicago, where Lucas Henning is our wine director. We're also here with Fred Scher, and he's going to be talking about some of his wines and some questions that are often asked from some of my students.
What I'm looking for in wine is something that you don't have to wait a million years to get sidle up to and enjoy. But I also value a long drinking window. And I want it to be, as a consumer, I want a bottle of wine that, I'll get it and I can drink it now and enjoy it, knowing fully well that I'm going to like it a lot more in a couple of years. And if I get some of those bottles in my cellar, I would like to feel like I don't have to know what month to drink them all in. So that if I have a 5-8 year window that I can enjoy this stuff in, I feel pretty secure that I'll be able to get around to drinking it in that period of time.
Sure. So it's more, and aging is more of an art, it sounds like, than a science. There's not one specific day or a month that you have to drink a wine.
There certainly is not, and particularly the storage conditions. For example, we're at about 58, 60 degrees in here, and a wine that has spent most of its life at this temperature is going to age differently than something that's been sitting in at 75 or 80, or at 55 for that same period of time. So once the wine gets out of the producer's domain, they're all going to take on new trajectories.
Right.
So that makes it a little tricky to talk about absolutely this is the window of drinking.
And for someone who wants to store wine at home, you mentioned that 55 to 60 degrees is ideal for temperature. What else should they look for? Do they need to have this huge cellar set up, or can they?
Yeah, and I'll sell you one of these.
Okay.
This is kind of the ideal situation because you can get to anything you want to, as long as you don't want to age it a long time. Then you should.
All the way down here. So we're blending the 15 gallons of Syrah in the gigantic glass bottle with the 30 gallons in the blue plastic container with another 50 or 53 gallons in there. And we're putting that into 2 containers here. I'm not sure you can see the level there. 2 of these. The idea being to get one consistent wine that we can then bottle. And we'll pump that upstairs after we're done. There's a plastic hose going from now to plastic. Used to come from through the pump and back into the barrel. Plastic barrel. This is how blending needs to be done. Up close and personal. We're blending about 5 gallons of Zinfandel into our 50 gallons each.
Here at Jordan Winery, we always bottle our Cabernet and our Chardonnay in the summertime. We are currently bottling our 2008 Cabernet, and our Chardonnay is our 2009 Chardonnay. We're very meticulous about our quality control. I go every year to Nashville where our labels are printed and actually visually inspect our labels being printed. Then when they arrive here in May, we have a crew that goes through and thumbs through every single label. With our corks, most people in our lab here have been to Portugal to learn more about quality control of corks. They're the top end cork, and then we actually have our suppliers sort out the bottom 30% of that so that we can be sure that we're having the best closure and the best visual cork that we possibly can. We taste all of our lots so that we can really select the premier lots, and those go into what we call our barrel blend. So these are lots that we know are for sure going to make our final bottle. There are some lots that we're not quite sure how they're going to age and how the fruit's going to come out, so we'll actually keep those separate so that we can evaluate them after the 12 months of aging. At the end of the aging process, we will taste what we call a bench blend together. It'll have all the lots proportionately together, and we'll taste those. And we'll do lots of different blends, some without this lot and then others including other lots, so we can be sure that we get the best blend possible to go in the bottle. Every year right before we bottle, we always we take home what we call our homework. We all take our tank samples home, and it's of the wine that would go into bottle, and we want to be sure that we're drinking it like a consumer would, that it has the elegance and the balance that Jordan really prides itself in having throughout the years. We drink it with our family, and we have it around the dinner table, and it really tries to simulate how our consumers would drink it at home. On the bottling line, we have what we call the clean room, and that's where the wine is actually going to be exposed to the elements. It doesn't quite have the cork in it yet. So the bottle will go through the bottle blower and get sparged with nitrogen, and then it will get filled through the filler, and then it finally gets corked. And that's the really crucial room where we have a special air ventilation so that nothing's going to get in the bottle in between the filler and the corker. And we always have someone with a enology background in the clean room, checking the dissolved oxygen and the vacuum on the corker and all the other quality control aspects that we check on a regular basis in the clean room. So after the wine gets a cork, it leaves the clean room and goes to the foiler. We use tin capsules so they get spun down, and then it goes through the labeler and through the spin down session so that we can be sure that the label is on there perfectly, there aren't any corners coming off. Then we have the 3 guys at the end packing the bottles, and they are going very fast, but they actually check each individual label to be sure that they're on correctly. They check the foil, and they actually visually inspect the glass, and it's pretty amazing when we're going that fast what they can catch. It's a crazy time. There's a lot of different things going on in the cellar and on the bottling side in the warehouse that it's just a lot to manage and stay on top of. Not to mention you're also in the lab, we're working on making sure that our wine is stable, both heat stable and cold stable. So there's lots of different tests and quality control going on behind the scenes as well. I always think of it as like a parent trying to send their kid off to college. You want to be sure that you give them all the information and do as much as you possibly can to prepare them for the world. So it's kind of like that with your wines. You've waited 12 months to get this wine absolutely perfect. You've tasted all the barrels, you've tasted the blends, and you want to be sure it's perfect.